we're watching a Count Dankula video.
The worst prison riot in U.S. history.
Apparently this one's telling me that what they did in this riot is worse than the Terrifier movies. Which I want to
be
see.
Places of order, where people that broke the rules can serve their time. It's a delicate ecosystem of balance maintained by discipline and authority. Their walls shield the outside from those deemed too dangerous and, in theory, give them a path to reform, to be let back out and live a normal life. But
yep, that's the plan for prisons, is to reform people, but some people just don't want to ever be reformed.
I thought ultimately the plan for prison is to just lock up the undesirables who are a menace to society.
That too, but who knows?
I mean, yes, it's nice if you can reform them, but most people can't change, so... And then I guess it's just morally better than just killing them?
what happens when that balance fumbles? When the system that was designed to contain the chaos actually becomes part of it? Like a pressure cooker, if left unchecked, and the ingredients are a mixture of overcrowding, neglect, a hefty tablespoon of despair, and basic human rights are still sitting out there on the countertop, eventually it will explode. And the result would be the biggest storm of violence in US prison history. Today's story is not just about rebellion or sticking it to the man, but more so about survival and the depths that human depravity can sink to if left unchecked. The New Mexico prison riot.
Oh, so this is in New Mexico.
Yeah, it's like Mexico, but fresher.
But okay. So, this is gonna go into some psychological folky up stuff, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And you sure it's gonna be... I wasn't done talking, bastard.
What? What?
Are you sure it's gonna be worse than the movie Terrifier?
I will continue.
Please leave a like and a comment on this video because it really helps me in the algorithm.
You don't have to.
You know the saying, it's a new year but I'm pushing 40 so it's not exactly a new me. However, that doesn't mean that change is no longer in the air. Resolutions may usually be just a cope, but what isn't is the premium audio quality that Raycon provides at just half the price of other audio brands. And they are crucial for helping me to hit the ground running in 2025 because they description box down below or go to buyraycon.com/Dankula to get 15% off site-wide. The Penitentiary of New Mexico, located just south of Santa Fe, was constructed in 1956, replacing an older facility established in 1885. Built to house about 800 inmates, its design reflected the 20th century philosophy of containment rather than rehabilitation. By the late 70s, the prison had little resemblance to the orderly institution that the architects had in mind. As seems to be the case with literally every single prison on Earth, the prison's population swelled far beyond capacity, holding over 1,100.
So basically, when the floodgates are overfilled...
Well, pack a bunch of people who are not exactly the nicest people on the planet, overpack them in 4 walls and see what happens.
Human instinct to survive, I guess.
Yeah.
Inmates and with conditions that could hardly be described as humane. The overcrowding wasn't a unique case in New Mexico. Across the US, the prison population exploded with the introduction of the War on Drugs policy by Richard "I am not a crook" Nixon. The tough-on-crime legislation led to the arrest of countless individuals, many for very petty crimes and minor drug offences, filling the prisons to a breaking point.
Huh.
And now it's
so
like,
basically, they just filled it with so someone who's like
well, back at the time, like someone would get 10 years for an ounce of weed, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, true.
And now I feel like we're doing the opposite. We're not arresting anybody.
Yeah, not arresting enough people now.
Facilities were too under-equipped and understaffed to handle the sheer influx of people, and the New Mexico prison was no exception to this. Cells that were intended for 2 people were crammed with 4 people. Basic necessities like clean water, food, and medical care were stretched thin. Hygiene was...
Yeah.
And I swear, in an anime, they always show the cells have 4 people in it. I thought 4 was normal number.
Well, some depends on the prison too.
Okay, so this one was made for 2.
2. Dog fucking having a nightmare while it's sleeping.
Aw, puppy puffs.
basically non-existent, and disease spread rapidly. But it wasn't just the shitty physical conditions that bothered the prisoners. There was also a brutal culture of fear and dominance, which was a daily occurrence. The guards, undertrained and understaffed, relied on intimidation and beatings to maintain some kind of order. When that...
Dude.
What?
It's Baki.
Oh yeah, Baki, the one where you went to prison.
Uh-huh.
Actually, this prison's worse than the one in Baki.
Well, yeah, because Baki, they had order because they had the hierarchy and stuff going on. This does not have order, I'm guessing.
That wasn't enough. They came up with a system called the snitch jacket. And you can pretty much imagine what that was. Prison rules are that you do not snitch on your fellow inmates, or you will get shanked in the ribs about 40 times in the showers.
Ow.
And if you didn't snitch, the guards would first beat the living shit out of you, and then they would label you as a snitch anyway, so that other prisoners would stab the living shit out of you.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
I guess all you can do is snitch and hope you don't get caught then. But then the officers would probably just tell on you anyway, yeah?
Yeah.
There's no, there's no honor.
Yeah, there's no upside.
There's nothing. You're fucked. No, it's doom.
So basically, if the guards asked you for intel about other inmates, no matter what answer you gave, you were fucked.
Damn.
Beyond physical abuse, the psychological toll on inmates wasn't any softer. Solitary confinement was used very liberally and often for very minor infractions. These tiny windowless cells deprived inmates of all sensory stimulation for weeks or sometimes even months on end. Access to mental health services was non-existent. And in 1975, educational and recreational programs, the things that are supposed to give you a chance at a normal life after you're released, were actually stopped completely. And inmates spent most of their free time in lockdown. Gang culture was formed for protection, divided.
By the way, imagine someone's been sitting in solitary confinement, and then all of a sudden their sentence just comes up right then and there. So you go from this to they let you out the door. And you wonder why people reoffend.
Oh, because they're terrified of the sensory overload, right?
Yeah, well, not only that, you're now mentally fucked.
Along racial and ethnic lines, of course. These groups wielded power, with violent fights frequently breaking out over territory or someone just looking at someone else the wrong way. Add the fact that inmates of varying security levels were all put together. Hardened criminals were sharing cells with first-time offenders, creating a breeding ground for exploitation and abuse.
Oh, don't be a pretty boy, that's for sure. Ooh.
You think Stone Ocean was bad from Jolene? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Breeding ground.
I'm surprised my dad survived.
Well, Ellsworth's probably better than this prison.
Yeah, my dad went to prison for a year. It was such a dumb thing. It was a dumb offense and stuff. He didn't really do anything wrong. I think it was called a criminal threat.
Criminal threat, then he got a DUI.
Then he got like 3 DUIs.
Yeah.
Then he went to jail and stuff. So he spent a year in prison.
Anyway, the basic gist was if you weren't in a gang, then you would get stabbed or shagged. Or both. At the same time. And if you were in a gang, then you would only get shagged by your gang.
What?
How lovely.
So
who needs friends? Who needs enemies when you have friends like that?
You get stabbed regardless.
Just get stabbed for fun. I hope you have a pain fetish.
Tensions within the prison continued to rise, and the first attempts at retaliation started to ignite. Something that became known as the Night of the Axe Handles became a chilling precursor to the riot. In 1976, in response to the poor conditions, the inmates started a work strike in the dormitories. After a series of escalating altercations, Deputy Warden Robert Montoya authorised the use of tear gas to subdue the protesting inmates. As they started to exit the dormitory, wheezing and teary-eyed from the gas, they were stripped naked and led through a 100-yard long corridor with guards beating the absolute fuck out of them on the entire journey with axe handles. While the administration...
The fuck?
The guards were doing that.
They gassed them, stripped them, then beat them, forcing them to walk down.
Beat their ass butt naked in front of other people, other prisoners.
While they choked and... What the fuck did they do?
They were just rioting because of the poor conditions.
Oh, okay. Oh, so no protesting in prison. You get
Keep on, this is back in the 1970s.
Yeah, okay, where things were more...
shitty.
Wild West.
framed this as a necessary measure, it further eroded trust between the inmates and the guards. The incident was verified by several eyewitnesses, some even being guards themselves, and it opened a federal lawsuit naming Deputy Warden Montoya and another guard captain as the perpetrators. That same year, an inmate with heroin addiction withdrawal was seeking help at the prison hospital, but he was instead thrown into solitary confinement. As if being confined within the hole with nothing but his heroin-withdrawn mind was not enough, he was also severely abused. Everything from verbal insults to being kicked in the nuts on a daily basis. The torture...
Why the nuts?
Because humans are very depraved.
Lasted for a month, and after he was released from solitary, another inmate and childhood friend of his by the name of Dwight Duran, who was serving time there for larceny and forgery, attempted to nurse him back to health. But his condition only got worse as time went on. After almost a year of begging the guards to give his friend proper medical treatment, he was finally examined at a hospital, where it was found that he had an advanced malignant tumour in his testicles. He was transferred to a state mental hospital where he died.
Okay, he's gonna die, but... So they kept kicking him.
The 1970s, okay? It was the 1970s. I'm not saying it's right.
Can you get a tumor from being kicked?
No, but I don't think it helped the tumor at all.
Oh, that's horrible. And they died
about 2 weeks later. After the incident, Dwight Duran was encouraged to write a 99-page civil rights complaint to the U.S. District Court of New Mexico in November of 1977, on behalf of all of his fellow inmates that were treated the same way as his now dead childhood friend. It became known as the Duran Consent Decree. And with over 10 grand jury investigations between 1977 and 1979,
that's horrible. So he was only in there because he was wanting to get help for his addiction to heroin, was it?
It was the 1970s. You want to read that shit on the kick?
Okay. All the years have... I don't know the word. Strifes. That word.
Yeah, sorry. So we're not the best of readers. Ado Fan Master.
Huh?
Ado Fan Master? Is that the...
Ooh! I love Ado too. If it's the same Ado, I think it is. Ado is awesome.
About the conditions in the prison, the administration expectedly refused to put any funds in for the necessary changes to the prison. This lawsuit was often seen as the last major non-violent attempt by the inmates to push for reform. This was about 2 months before the riots. In 1980, the terrible conditions of the prison reached their peak.
I said, sorry, I don't write English much. It's fine. We can't read very good, so it's all good.
Yeah, we all have problems with languages, barriers, stuff.
Uprising began to circulate among the inmates and the staff. The administration dismissed the warnings as just disgruntled chatter, but what the then warden Jerry Griffin and his staff failed to realise was the sheer amount of anger that had accumulated. Years of abuse, neglect, and the cancellation of the education programmes, just to name a few, created the perfect mixture that was ready to explode.
Yeah, at some point, the human mind's just gonna snap. What you got for me? Yes, is Ado the one and only the one that starts his morning in the 5 p.m.?
I'm gonna roll over to you. Are you in Japan by chance? It's my first time on Kick. It's all good.
We're fairly new with
Streaming
too, so yeah, it's all good.
But anyway.
The inmates finally had enough, and they wanted the walls painted red. On February the 2nd, 1980, what began as a casual secret drinking party with prison hooch, hooch being homemade prison alcohol that's usually made in the toilet, the inmates in E2 dormitory were hatching a plan to overpower the guards during the routine 1 a.m. head count. A proper plan was never really formalised, and the inmates were relying mainly on the staff fucking up. And boy, did the staff manage to fuck up.
Oh no. How can you had one job. You had one job, and now because you fucked up.
Bad shit.
Did a bunch of them get killed too?
I'm gonna continue.
Okay.
During the head count, which the guards do to ensure that all of the inmates are present and no one has escaped, when the guards entered the dormitory, all of the inmates positioned themselves strategically around the dorm, and on a signal would ambush the guards with shanks and pipes. It started as a slim hope to take just a few guards hostage inside the dorm and then use them as leverage. But the prisoners very quickly noticed that the guards had made a huge mistake. One that could take the plan a lot further than they had originally envisioned. While doing the head count, the guards forgot to lock the door to the fucking dorm. The prisoner...
You had one job! One job!
I think the key part of a prison is to make sure doors are locked. Just a forethought.
Was it a DI hire?
This is before all that shit happened.
No, it's still someone's mentally your cousin.
No, it's we paid you the lowest we could pay someone that were willing to take the damn job.
No, they're too busy drinking to do their job.
Probably.
Gave the signal, and they quickly rushed in and beat the absolute shit out of the guard who was next to the door so that he couldn't close it, while everyone else grabbed the other 3 guards. And just like that, they had 4 hostages, the door out of the dorm was fucking open and unlocked, and what's more important, they now had the radio transmitters and the keys that granted them access to the restricted areas. So the inmates started going around and unlocking all of the cells. and the released inmates all joined in, and they made their way to the control centre that housed the mechanisms for opening all of these cells and doors in the prison. At around 2 a.m, they took control of it, smashing the presumed bulletproof glass with a fire extinguisher. I have no fucking idea how that...
It's bulletproof, but it's not fire extinguisher proof.
I still want to know how the hell that happened. They were pissed off enough to break through a fucking bulletproof glass.
Sheesh.
Even worked, nor will I question it. But it effectively gave the inmates complete control over the prison's security systems. The takeover of the control centre allowed them to open even more cells, rapidly increasing their numbers. They also accessed the kitchens and the workshops, arming themselves with whatever they could find. As the riot amplified, the inmates took even more hostages. A total of 12 guards, all of whom were very severely beaten. One guard later recounted, "They blindfolded us and tied our hands. We didn't know if we would make it out alive." Within the chaos, some inmates took it upon themselves to protect the hostages, being aware that if any hostages were killed, it would provoke a lethal response from the authorities who were all gathering out.
Well, at least some of them had brains, but the ones that are protecting the guards, you think they're gonna get...
I think he said they were trying to be rational, because if they kill all the guards,
exactly,
they have no reason.
They have no hostages anymore, and then they could just blow them all up or something.
Yeah.
They formed a protective barrier, shielding the hostages from the much more unhinged individuals that were very busy burning the place to the ground. Officer Hernandez, one of the guards, later noted, "A few of them stood guard over us. They said, if you die, we all die." Everything was already spiralling out of control.
Yep.
But it was at cell block 4 where it would reach its peak.
Here's a plan that they should have done. Instead of just freeing everyone, maybe they should have talked to them to see, maybe not free the ones who are the most crazy. Of course, they could have lied, too.
Well, that, and also, this was not planned very well.
Obviously.
Began with the actions of two major gangs. On one side, you had the Chicanos, the Mexican-American gang of the prison that was seeking retribution for any wrongdoings against them. On the other side, there was a group who were vaguely associated with the Aryan Brotherhood, led by some of the most violent inmates who were released from segregation not so long ago. And both of these groups were targeting Cell Block 4.
Ooh.
The Protection Hall, which housed inmates who were labelled as mentally ill, sex offenders, or the worst label of all, snitches.
Wait. Okay, I can understand them going after the snitches and the sex offenders.
I don't think they harmed any mentally ill.
I hope not.
He didn't say it in this video.
Cell Block 4, with its 96 prisoners, became ground zero for the riot's most horrific acts.
Okay,
when the control centre was taken over, instead of trying to figure out how to get the fuck out of there or trying to negotiate, the two groups had just one thing in mind: revenge. Cell Block 4 was at the northern part of the prison, meaning they had to go through the hospital and psychology wings first. And along the way, they stumbled upon a treasure trove of drugs. Narcotics, sedatives, and many other very delectable things. As every normal man would do in that situation, they fucking consumed all anything that was left.
So now you got these.
Now they're angry and high. That's horrible. I say it was Japanese girl that likes to scream a lot, and there's a video that she starts her day again. Oh, okay. Yeah. You confused me. Yes. Hold on. Hold on.
All right.
Let's see. Is this the same Ado you're talking about? Hold on. 信じてよこのになんだ少しでも枯れてしまえば枯れてしまえば Her, right? Yeah, I love her.
And, well, let's go back to more horrific shit.
Singing break.
Left over was put into bags and boxes to distribute it to others along the way, like it was a casual Amsterdam street party. For good measure, they also set the office on fire, destroying countless legal records that were used to keep inmates from getting parole. When they finally reached cell block 4, high off of their arses on all kinds of meds, with some inmates even passing out and vomiting from overdosing on sleeping pills, they realised, oh no, we don't have the keys to open the block. But look, here are some very fucking conveniently placed blowtorches at a nearby cell block that was under construction at the time. So, over the next 5 hours, they would use the blowtorches to cut through the bars that separated them from cell block 4. They decided
That's how pissed they were.
That is... Okay. So they had the keys... They got high, then they lost the keys because...
No, they didn't have the keys specifically for cell block 5.
Oh.
Or 4.
Why not? They couldn't
that
find
part
them?
I don't know.
And they decided to...
But they conveniently, like I said, had a blowtorch.
Wow. They really had a kill boner.
to ransack the office records while they were waiting for the bars to be cut. And they started collecting files on the Block 4 boys to see who were the snitches.
Ow.
The files basically became a death warrant for the unlucky ones that were named in them. As every good Catholic does, some of the prisoners went to the nearby Catholic chapel to pray before the absolutely horrific things that they intended to do.
Yes, yes. Pray to God for forgiveness for...
I don't think it works like that. I don't think you get a punch card.
Please forgive me for my sins of murdering these people.
Forgive me, Father, for I'm about to sin. Along the way, they also burned the Protestant church to the ground. Again, as every good Catholic does.
Why would you? Why?
Why?
That people from USA believe that the chocolate milk comes from a brown cow.
Some dumb people do.
I was sure there's some...
There are some dumb people that believe that. We don't, obviously, but yeah.
Is that true?
Where we go from burn a church down in prison to...
The chocolate milk coming from brown cows.
Get the ladder out of the way. It's about to get dark.
Dude. No. No.
And while all of this was going on the other side of the bars, the Cell Block 4 boys were fully aware of how absolutely fucked they were. Some were crying and yelling through the bar windows to the police outside, begging for help. Others tried direct contact with negotiators over the radio. Their screams were met with silence. Although there was a back door to the block that could have been unlocked and used as a means of escape from the drug-infused maniacs, the police were very reluctant to let them out. With one official even saying, "It's their ass." After finally cutting through the bars and getting into the block, there was another problem. One could say for both sides. The individual cell doors still needed to be opened. On one side, they still had to cut through the cell doors one by one, and on the other side, these Cell Block 4 boys could do absolutely nothing but watch in horror as murderous maniacs were making their way through the bars and dragging them out one after the other.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's just living hell.
Yeah.
Wow. That.
So there's literally nothing you can do but sit there and wait for your demise.
And at least, yeah, you get to stare at the face of your killer. Oh. Makes you regret your actions, huh?
So one by one, the rioters opened the cells, and their occupants were dragged out, beaten, stabbed, hanged, burned to death, and yes, also decapitated. So here are a few examples of things that happened on that very fateful day in Cell Block 4. Now, this part of the video is not for those among you with very weak stomachs, so you can just...
Okay, run away! Run away
if you're
now!
eating or you got a weak stomach, just mute it for a little while.
We will be fine, though. I watch a lot of horror movies. The guy from behind you, he sounds like the guy from the radio show Broken Chubby in the Morning. The one that always laughs.
I don't know who that is, but okay. But thank you. Like I said, if you don't want to hear some horrifying shit...
We're about to listen to some gore.
skip to this timestamp if you're a pussy. Anyway, Mario Urioste was a man who was charged with shoplifting and placed into cell block 4 for his own safety after filing a lawsuit against other inmates who had sexually assaulted him. He was dragged out, beaten, hanged, had his balls cut off and then stuffed into his mouth before having his throat slit. Also, do you remember the blowtorches? Yeah, this is the worst part of the video. It's bad. Yeah, it's really bad. Well, an inmate was tied up and tortured all over his body with the blowtorches. These are blowtorches that can cut through metal bars, by the way. The blowtorches were also used on his face and also his eyes. They used blowtorches on his eyes. But it doesn't end there. You'll be very happy to hear it. Oh, it doesn't end there. They jammed one of the blowtorches into his eye socket and turned it on at full power. And the guy's fucking head exploded.
Oh. It's okay. It's almost like the twins that we do back then here.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, tell me again how it's worse than Terrifier.
I think they did something like that. You and I need to sit down and watch those movies, okay?
Because that's a horror movie. Someone's head literally exploded from his eye socket.
We got some information. We got some hold on. We learned some science facts today. Apparently, a blowtorch to your eye hole can cause your head to explode. So our heads are combustible.
That or they filled it with gas and when they ignited it.
He didn't say they put gas or any lighter fluid.
No, the gas from the torch, and then when they ignited the gas from the torch.
But he didn't say they did that.
I don't think.
No, our heads are naturally combustible.
His head fucking exploded. Now, I know for a fucking fact that you didn't know that could even happen, and neither did I, but it's information that both of us didn't need to know, but...
See?
Here we are. By the end of the day of the 96 Cell Block 4 boys, 16 of them were dead. And they were murdered in some of the most gruesome Quentin Tarantino fucking horrific ways that you could ever possibly imagine. The prison gymnasium was then used as a makeshift crematorium to obviously get rid of all the evidence. Basically, everyone who had been murdered in the prison, all of the bodies were dragged to the gymnasium, put in a great big pile, and then set on fire. Which later obviously caused the gymnasium to fucking burn down because of the sheer amount of corpses being burned inside it. There are forensic pictures of the aftermath of this, but this is YouTube, so obviously...
You think with all that fire and stuff they're doing that they would have, like, maybe, I don't know, burned down the whole prison and as well as themselves?
I don't know.
That would have fixed everyone's problems.
Not going to show those. Leroy Vigil, one of the inmates that actually took part in the Cell Block 4 massacre, came out in an interview about all of the things that happened in the block after he was diagnosed with hepatitis B. I'll just let the man talk for himself.
To be truthful, I would have enjoyed every bit of it, killing them, you know, because they tested their. My Briones made statements against me. Jimmy Joe Villa, he testified against me in my trial. When we took us downtown for trial. He testified on something that I never done. And they gave me 300 years for that. But I would have enjoyed every bit of it, killing him.
By noon, the violence in Cell Block 4...
So, they were very bitter.
And when you have nothing left to lose...
Because he had no chance of parole and all that stuff, too.
Yeah, he ain't getting out.
Yeah, I guess that would turn you more cray-cray.
4 had mostly calmed down. The execution squad, as they named themselves, did most of what they wanted to there, leaving a trail of dismembered, mutilated and burned bodies in their wake. For the ones that survived, the terror would linger long after it ended. As one inmate that survived Cell Block 4 later commented, "Hell isn't hot enough for what happened in there." While all of that fuckery was happening on the inside, the police and officials were scrambling to take control of the chaos from the outside. At around 2 AM, about an hour after everything started, they picked up the first transmission from one of the inmates which said, "We got the shift commander hostage. There had better be a meeting with the governor, the news media, and Rodriguez," referring to Felix Rodriguez, the Deputy Secretary of Corrections and a former warden. Not really the first person that you want to disappoint in such situations. You could argue a hierarchy of command didn't really exist, and the inmate who said that most likely got shanked 2 minutes later just to be replaced by another inmate. Since most of the riot was...
I would say just leave them alone to their own devices, but I guess you want to save the poor hostages, right?
Yeah, there's still guards in there.
Yeah.
And people would probably don't want nothing to do with it.
True.
To put it very mildly, rather improvised. Warden Jerry Griffin arrived at the scene roughly half an hour into the riot at around 1:30 AM, alongside Deputy Warden Robert Montoya and Superintendent of Correctional Security Emmanuel Coronios arriving shortly.
If I remember correctly, there was...
Actually, two
fighters from 2 tribes. If one lose, the winner will take his heart. Make
traditional dish here in Mexico. Ooh.
Oh, huh. That's interesting.
After, with the inmates having a blast inside and holding hostages, Griffin made a snap decision to seek advice from Montoya, who recently completed a crisis intervention course. Apparently, this made him the closest thing that they had to an expert negotiator. Montoya got on the radio trying to establish contact. He managed to reach an inmate that was referring to himself as Chopper 1, who claimed that he had the shift captain hostage, and his demand was that every block in the prison gets a pool table and steak for dinner.
Wait. They're going to get a pool table and steak, so they're going to eat a pool table.
Again, they probably killed the one guy and then they...
Everyone gets a pool table and a steak for dinner. Enjoy eating your pool table. It'd be better
Already
than the heart.
failing negotiation attempts quickly fell apart when other inmates hijacked the airwaves. Arguments, conflicting demands and contradictions were all over the place. You know how you want to just sit down and chill and play some games with your friends on Discord, and after about 10 minutes everybody is raging and calling each other slurs? Yeah, well, it was pretty much just like that. Governor Bruce King was dragged out of bed at around 3 a.m, with possibly the worst wake-up call in his life. He agreed that negotiations were the best current option for now, since trying to storm the place would put the hostages in danger. The much heavier sleeper, Felix Rodriguez, arrived on the scene hours later. By that...
Man, what do you do in a situation like this? How do you save those hostages when you have just these crazy, insane people who they don't even know what they want?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be for that.
At that time, Montoya was going through his own personal nightmare, forcefully put into the position of negotiator. For hours, he was listening to the inmates' demands, and the transmission hijacking added another layer of drama and comedy to the situation. 1 second, an inmate would be on the radio demanding a meeting with the governor, and then in the next instant, another inmate would be on the radio calling his mum a hoe. Despite everything, Montoya somehow managed to get a compromise. The inmates requested medical aid for the hostages, again being aware that the hostages were their lifeline, because in any situation, once the hostages are dead, the police just swarm the place and start shooting. So Montoya countered by wanting the hostages released instead. The prisoners expectedly refused, though 2 of the hostages managed to disguise themselves as inmates and escape to safety later with the help of some good-hearted inmates. The rest were not so lucky. Most of them were severely beaten, and 2 of them were forced upon several times and later carried out in makeshift stretchers, all naked and bloody.
Surprise butt sex?
Oh. They must have been too pretty for their own good.
Surprise butt sex?
Oh no. That's horrible.
A more structured negotiation, if you can even call it structured, happened the next day on Saturday afternoon. 4 inmates were chosen as representatives, one of them being Lonnie Duran, no relation, who was actually in solitary confinement when the riot started. He was already known for his involvement in the Duran consent decree, and the prisoners kept repeating the same 11 demands from the decree: overcrowding, solitary confinement, elimination of programs, etc., etc. And they insisted on talking to independent federal officials and journalists. All pretty reasonable requests considering the absolute shit show going on inside. But instead of actually changing anything, the guards' plan was to simply stall the prisoners as much as they could and wait for them to tire themselves out.
Okay, there you go. Wait for everyone to go to bed.
Or the tantrum to stop.
Yeah, wait for the drugs to
kick in or wear off.
Yeah.
On Sunday afternoon, roughly 36 hours after the riot began, the prisoners were all exhausted. Deaths, injuries, negotiation fatigue, fear of consequences, and
it's not like they would know how to coordinate with each other to have, like, some people sleep, some people don't. No. This whole plan was because they just kept killing each other, right?
Apparently.
a very hard drug crash were just a few of the reasons why most of the inmates wanted to just get it over with. So, heavily armed police entered what remained of the prison, which was now mostly ash and covered in blood. Official reports stated that 33 inmates died during the riot, but there is speculation that the number is a lot higher due to all of the fires and the forensic challenge of confirming all of the mutilated and charred bodies. In addition to the death toll, over 200 inmates were treated for injuries ranging from stabbings and burns all the way down to forced struggle snuggles.
Of course.
It's also worth mentioning that some of them died from drug overdoses as well, so at least a few of them went out having a great time.
So some of them died being fooked to death.
And some of them died from drug overdoses, so they went out with a smile on their face.
Pursuit of justice after the riot was a complicated process. While some inmates did face prosecution for the absolutely atrocious crimes that they had committed, the legal aftermath fell short on addressing the full scope of what had happened. According to Roger Paul Morris, an American historian and policy analyst, the majority of the crimes went unpunished. Because everything had been burned to a crisp, including bodies, DNA was all over the place, evidence was all trashed and destroyed.
Oh, because they can't... Really? And there was a game with a ball of the two teams, and babies, they were... Dude, I think they had that's like Mayan type culture, right? I believe, or
Yeah, I think so.
that's what it sounds like. Because that sounds like something from the movie Road to El Dorado is what that's reminding me of.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was like this way not as ancient as that, obviously, but oof, yeah.
And all of this happened in a place where famously no one snitches. Basically, it was a complete forensic and investigative nightmare, and it was essentially impossible to prove who did what. Of the inmates...
Okay, so like, even their records were destroyed too, yeah?
Yeah. No, they probably didn't have security cameras. They didn't have...
Why not?
1970s, security cameras weren't...
No. I was gonna say, why not just go ahead and just give all those guys...
Because you gotta prove who did what. You can't just do a blanket charge, because then it'll be thrown out.
Okay.
Actually did get prosecuted. The longest sentence handed down was an additional 9 years. Considering all of the things that happened in the prison during that riot, that's just a little bit insufficient in my opinion. The defence of many of the inmates was led by the famous criminal lawyer William L. Summers. In 1982, he received the Robert C. Heaney Award for his efforts in defending a ton of the inmates, arguing that they were just bystanders in the chaos or they were merely acting out of fear. The most significant legal outcome was the eventual implementation of the now named...
I guess it would be hard to weed out the crazy ones and the bad, the normal. I guess maybe look at their, the record. They would still have like records on somewhere else of what each person did, right?
Not really. This is back when everything was on paper, and if everything got burnt or crisp.
I don't know. I feel like they should have just give everyone the death penalty.
Duran versus King consent decree, renamed to reflect King's administration as the target of the lawsuit. It outlined the changes intended to address the conditions that contributed to the riot. The progress was very, very slow, and the King administration was resisting implementing it, and it wasn't until 7 years later, when Governor Tony Anaya and his administration was put into place, that real change actually started. Under the new decree, reforms included the implementation of the Bureau classification system to better manage inmate placement and reduce overcrowding, improved medical care, better guard training, and also the return of the educational programmes, just to name a few. As for Dwight Duran, after he was released, he was actually sent back to prison. To film a documentary discussing the events of the riot from his perspective.
Okay.
The riots inspired several forms of media, like
familiar.
Roger Morris's book The Devil's Butcher Shop, documenting the events leading up to the riot and also after it. It also inspired the song The Last Act of Defiance by the trash band Exodus, and in 2013, the state even started giving public tours of the old prison so that you can actually go in and see for yourself the still...
Do you think that prison's haunted?
I imagine it is. I imagine there's a portal to hell there at that point.
visible marks of the axes and shovels that were used for decapitation. Or what's left of the guy that got his head blown up by a fucking blowtorch.
Huh.
Now you see over here, this is where a guy got his head blown up by a torch. Over there's the sodomy suites.
That's horrible.
The prison was also later used as a movie set, particularly the old main section that was decommissioned in 1998, and no active inmates have been housed there ever since. Some of the more known movies that were filmed there were Natural Born Killer, The Night Stalker, and also The Longest Yard. The movie that made Adam Sandler look like the most unconvincing prison tough guy in movie history. Nevertheless, I am a sucker for early 2000s movies, so thumbs up, would recommend, I suppose. And if there is a lesson to be learned from the New Mexico State Penitentiary, it's this. If you're going to house dangerous inmates in a literal powder keg, hide the fucking blowtorches.
I think the real lesson to be learned here is don't do anything to get you put in prison.
Or don't treat people like animals.
Don't be crazy in public.
Well, that was this video.
Wow.